Oh, okay. Awesome. Wow, guys. Welcome, welcome. All right. So we are at the top of the hour, guys. We want to go ahead and get started because this is going to be a jam-packed call with a lot of great information. So I encourage you guys, grab a notepad and pen, take some notes. I got a chance to listen to her speak, and when I tell you this woman is incredible, there's no way I can regurgitate or repeat anything that she says. So I'm excited. I called her and I asked her if she can be on to share, and I think you guys will thoroughly enjoy what Maria has to offer. So before I bring Maria on the line, I just want to share with you guys how amazing Maria is. She's actually an M1 with the company, and it was hilarious because she didn't even know she hit the rank. Her sponsor, Sherry, contacted me. I messaged Maria, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, what does M1 even mean?" And so it's funny because she's so focused and busy helping so many people feel better off of our frequency of PEMF with OlyLife devices that she wasn't even paying attention to the growth of her business and her own rank advancement. So, guys, that is truly, I guess, the definition of what success looks like. With what Zig Ziglar said, and what stays with Twan and I is if you just help enough people get what they want, then you in turn will get everything that you want. And so, without further ado, I want to go ahead and hand this call over to Maria Boldry. She's amazing. Again, she is one of the newest M1s in Ollie Nation. So, Maria, go ahead and take the call over.
Mm, Thank you so much, Van. Thank you for inviting me. And hello, everybody. I don't know how jam-packed this was going to be because I didn't know I was going to be the only speaker tonight, but I will answer questions and we'll go as far as we need to, honoring time. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and where I started. Um, I've worked in the chiropractic industry. I ran two chiropractic offices for about one of them for about 13 and a half years. And I was, just so blessed to be working with somebody who not only muscle tested in his business, but formulated his own products. So I got to see and witness all of that. So I've since become a formulator too. I have several products out, and that's been really fun and exciting. And stepped out on my own after I did that. So I've been running my own clinic since 2010, and that's been amazing. There were times where I thought, okay, God, why did you put me in this little farm town community of Greeley, Colorado? And where people are more looking for mainstream medical help. Naturopathic doctors weren't so much back then in 2010, 2009, 2010, 11, in there. So, but I had people coming in saying, oh my gosh, you've saved my life. You've changed my world, you whatever. And I just kept looking up and going, okay, well, I must be doing something right because I have people that are coming back saying, I no longer need a gallbladder surgery or things like that. So I've just been kind of planted in this place, and it's been really fun. I have always put out there in my world that I wanted to teach people about electroceuticals and about energy because we are just a bag of atoms. That's what we are. And if we can get all those atoms to be communicating 100% correctly, then disease and illness just fails to exist because it's all happening the way it should. So I've been in the electroceutical world using different PEMF devices and OMS machines and lasers and all kinds of stuff for most of that time. I even had a purr chair. So I have to tell you about this. The cat's purr is 25 to 45 hertz. Okay, that's the frequency of that purr. That frequency is accelerated wound healing and bone healing. And that's why cats have 9 lives. They can jump off a roof and get a spiral fracture in their leg, and they purr themselves healthy. So I created a purr chair in my first clinic that I had. And even people who were not cat lovers absolutely loved this purr chair. What I did was I took some speakers on a zero gravity chair and attached some speakers along the back. And then I recorded my cat purring. And she didn't have a very, it was just a really nice purr. It wasn't some of the ones you hear that are, it wasn't like that. It was just very, very nice. And I just had that playing on a CD with the speakers in their back. So people would come in and sit while I was giving them other treatments and other sessions with different things, or we were just talking, and they would be being purred on. And some people were, what they asked for. I just want to come in and I want to sit in the purr chair because it was so relaxing. And so that really got me even more intrigued about using energy, using electroceuticals. I had a deaf woman come in and she brought her little dog with her and her iPad. And she sat in that purr chair and she had her hands on, resting on the armrests of the chair. And of course, the frequency was coming through. She could feel the energy and she kind of like it jolted her a little bit. And she was like, what is this? And she wrote, what is this I'm feeling? And I said, oh, it's because I'd forgotten about it. I'm like, you're sitting in the purr chair. It's a cat's purr and it's very healing. And her dog had situated himself right next to the foot. So his back was kind of leaning up on it. And so she said, oh, okay, I get it. And so anyway, that was encouraging for me because since she couldn't hear the purr, she could feel it. Her senses were so heightened in her touch that she could actually feel the vibration of that purr. So that totally got me intrigued because it was helping people heal so much. So I started with getting some PEMF devices. We did a lot with rebounding, foot detox. We just did all kinds of things in our 6,000 square foot spa that we had. And then I moved into a smaller clinic in 2014 and got a little bit more focused into nutrition and putting the pieces of the puzzle together for people on what their body's missing. And one of the things that people are missing is the right frequencies. So I want to jump into, let me just mute my phone because I already had somebody call. Okay, so I want to jump into this. Let's see, I need to share screen. Okay, let's see, I'll go to, is this large enough? I wonder if I need to go into full screen. Let me just go to full screen and then reduce this down. Okay, I can't see the chat. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of
Looks
go
good,
through.
Maria.
Does it go? Okay.
Mhm.
I'm just going to kind of go through my stuff here. I won't be able to pull up the chat while this is going, but if you have questions, just go ahead and put it in the chat. I don't know how long this presentation will be because I just kind of threw this slide deck together today. So we'll see. And then we can do a lot of Q&A if it ends up being a little bit shorter. Okay. So let me click in here. Okay. So when I'm talking to my clients about PEMF, because that is one of the main things that we talk about with the OlyLife, the terahertz is just the icing on the cake. But the PEMF is really the workhorse. And this is the reason why. In our body, we have about 60 to 70,000 miles. So think about that, 60 to 70,000 miles of vessels. That includes arteries and the small and large arteries, the veins, and then all of the capillaries. The capillaries make up about 12-ish thousand miles of that. So this diagram here, if you've ever been to the Body Works display that they'll have at usually like the museums in towns. I know that we had one here in Denver and I went and it was amazing. This is actually a human body. It's a cadaver. And what they've done is they've pushed silicone into, as far as they can, out into the veins, the arteries, and the capillaries, as far as they could, and then burned off the cadaver part. So the flesh is all gone, but what remains is the silicone that is left behind. Now, this doesn't include all of the capillaries because there is no way that they could have pushed silicone into every vessel. So this is just probably maybe 74% still of what we have in our body. So when you think about the makeup, this is dynamic. And you can see how many capillaries and vessels are in the lungs and in the digestive organs. And look at the brain. And this isn't even all of what's in the brain. So, and then you look at the fingertips. And so now we're looking at all the different things that affect these issues, whether it's COPD or if it's digestion, any type of digestive issue or the brain. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have the best blood flow possible. And many people don't. So working with PEMF as long as I have, I've seen amazing things happen from better blood flow. I'll just give you an example for myself. I had a bicep tendon injury and I couldn't raise my hand. Let me do this so you can see. I don't know if I'll be able to go back and forth like this really easy, but I'll try. So I wasn't able to like even to do the rear view mirror in the car. I couldn't do that. I would have to actually lift my arm up to do the rear view mirror. And I started working with a PEMF mat. And about 5 weeks in, I was noticing better things. I was noticing that I was sleeping better. I was noticing digestion was better. My hot flashes were a little lower. I just felt better all over. And then one morning I put on my shirt and I literally put my arm up through my sleeve. Now, granted, I had to learn to dress myself with my left arm because I couldn't raise my right arm. My bicep tendon was not torn all the way through, but a lot of micro tears. And there's so little blood flow that goes to tendons. It takes so long for it to heal. So I think without the PEMF device, I would have been probably still struggling with that shoulder. But that morning, 5 weeks after being on this product or this mat, I put my arm up through my sleeve without pain. And I literally, I think my jaw was down. I was like, oh my gosh, did I just do that without pain? Can I do that again? And I did. So that's the kind of things that I've seen with PEMF that have been so profound. Okay, let's go back to this. Okay, good, right there. So when we're looking at all of the blood vessels, the pulsed electromagnetic field is really important, and we'll talk about why. So in this scenario here, I want to talk about specific blood flow and the mechanism of how and why it happens. So the heart, in order to pump to 60 to 70,000 miles of blood vessels, our heart would have to be huge in order for it to do one pump and get all the blood out to the peripheral, clear out to our fingertips and in our eyes, the smallest vessels that we have. Our heart would have to be so huge. But it's not. Our heart is not that big comparatively, right? So what happens is the heart pumps blood out of the left ventricle and it hits the back of the aorta. Let me go to the next slide here.
Maria, we can't see your screen.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, so when I click out, I can't do that then. Let me go back. Okay.
You just have to screen share again.
Yep, I'll just have to get back to, I can't find my Zoom calls. Sorry, guys. Let me go here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, if anything like that happens again, just jump in and tell me. Okay, and then let me get back to full screen. Okay, are we back now?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, good. Perfect. Okay. So in order for, just to go back a little bit, in order for our heart to pump to all of these blood vessels, it would have to be huge. We'd have to have a huge heart, right? But we don't. We have this smaller heart. So in order for our blood flow to get out to the peripheral, what we need to do is, or what happens is the heart pushes blood out of the left ventricle. It hits the back of the aorta and it sends this pulse wave. This pulse wave is like a wave in the ocean, but the pulse wave activates the small, smooth muscle in all of the veins, arteries, and capillaries to create vasodilation and then dilation, vasodilation, and then it just creates this pulse wave similar to a wave in the ocean. So you know how a wave in the ocean just keeps going? It just keeps going and going and going. That energy just keeps going until it hits something like an obstruction, until it hits like a reef or land or whatever. And then that energy is kind of dispersed. Well, the same thing happens in the human body. The way that pulse wave, after the blood hits the back of the aorta and it sends out this pulse wave, that continues until it hits in us, it hits some type of obstruction. So that obstruction could be something like scar tissue or ischemic tissue. Let's say you've been at the computer all day and your shoulder muscles are just so tight and they're not letting good blood flow through. That is that is some kind of, congestion that the blood flow can't get through. Toxicity or pathogens, food or drink. Oh, the inflammation that's caused from not only the pathogens or the toxins we have in our environment, but the food and the drink that we're constantly bringing in that potentially could be inflammatory to us. I think that's important. It's why it's important that we do blood and hair analysis to find out what is inflammatory to us, because sometimes we're eating things every single day and we don't even recognize that it's inflammatory. PEMF and terahertz can help with that, but we can even make it go a little bit farther. But that wave in the ocean or the pulse wave in our body is similar to, I love, my dad used to have one of these when he worked at the bank. And I would go in and I was so intrigued how this ball would just keep going back and forth and back and forth. And we live on a magnetic planet and we're planted here. So it is innate for us to have a pulse wave that just keeps going and going, similar to the wave in the ocean. I want to show you this. This is from a PEMF device that's out there. Some of you may recognize the video, but I absolutely love this video because it really, really shows the importance of how PEMF can change blood flow and make everything function better. I'm just going to start playing it. These vessels are so small that they would fit at the end of a ballpoint pen. This is a 24-year-old semi-pro athlete, and this is in the colon. So they were able to backlight. And so these vessels are very, very small. But what I want you to see is there's these white balls in here that you can see on occasion, and they're flowing with the plasma. This one over here having a hard time. We're just having a hard time even getting things to go. But this one, you can see these white balls that are kind of flowing with the plasma. Those are white blood cells, and they're not being able to do their job at all. I equate this to sort of like being in the parade instead of watching the parade. If you're watching the parade, then you can see everything. But if you're in the parade, you can't see much. In this particular device, this is after just a few minutes of being on the PEMF device. And we can already see this is huge, huge difference, right, in the blood flow. Think about all the cells that are out here that are just waiting for oxygen and nutrition. And now we can start seeing in here somewhere there's some white blood cells, but they're still not really doing their job. So as the clips go on, you'll see that they're doing their job so much better. And I think that's one of the big things that's super important for us with PEMF. Now, this is 6 minutes later. Oh my gosh, this is like, but look at these white blood cells. White blood cells are supposed to just stroll along the capillary wall so that they can capture pathogens as pathogens run over the top of them and they can do their job. When someone does a PEMF device, and this is a lot, and this is most PEMF devices, but when people use them, they get several hours of better white blood cell count as far as activity, and better immunity. Our white blood cells get to do their job finally. So a lot of disease states happen and inflammatory states happen because the white blood cells aren't doing their job. And then this is 30 minutes after this particular device. So this is crazy cool how just using a PEMF device can change your immunity for that length of time. How does that help? Well, let's say if you could only put somebody on your OlyLife or your P90 Plus for, let's say one session, okay? What's the benefit? You might think to yourself, well, what's the benefit if they're not going to buy one and not going to have one? But think about this. What if somebody in their blood had parasites and they didn't know it? But offering them a session on that P90 Plus gave them several hours of better immune function. If you could do that, that could potentially be the catalyst or the step up or the one up that the body needed in order to facilitate healing or eradicating that pathogen. And that's all it needed. And wouldn't that be the most amazing blessing that you could give somebody to send them on their way, even if they never came back to see you again, or if it was a family member that said, I'm never doing that again. But that's not what we're seeing. So, but even if it was one time, it would be such a blessing. Okay, this next slide is one that we have been sharing for live blood analysis. So the other one was blood flow. This is somebody that has taken their blood prior to being on a PEMF to just see what the blood state was. And what they found was a lot of this clumping, so sticky. This is showing signs of the pH being really acidic and everything sticky and clumping together. The blood is thick. So in that last video, remember when that capillary was having a hard time getting blood through, it wouldn't have happened. But then this is after a 20-minute PEMF session. This is amazing. This is the type of blood flow that we need to get to our system. Okay, so let's talk about PEMF and what it does. I need to move some stuff here. Okay, PEMF is pulsed electromagnetic field. So it stimulates cellular repair and regeneration. It enhances blood flow throughout the body, which you just saw. It aids in reducing inflammation. And the reason it does that is if you can get better blood flow to the cells know what to do. So if you can get better blood flow out there to the cell knows that it has toxic matter in it. It has metabolic ash residue. It has stuff that it needs to get. It needs to take out the garbage, right? So if we can get better blood flow to the cell, guess what it gets to do? It gets to take out the garbage. And then we get to reduce the inflammation. It alleviates pain. So I want you to remember this. Blood flow that is lessened creates inflammation. So think about that. The blood flow, just in the last video where all that blood was clumping together, that's more sticky blood, right? So you're reducing or you're increasing the inflammation because now you're a little bit acidic. Anytime there's inflammation, it means there's less blood flow. Anytime there's less blood flow, it means there could be pain. So when somebody comes in to see you, or it's you maybe that are in pain, it means that you don't have proper blood flow. Because if you can get the blood to the tissue, the inflammation begins to leave and that starts to relieve pain. I'd like to talk a teeny bit here because this kind of falls in with this about neuropathy. So neuropathy is really interesting. It's kind of a combination of things, and our brain is so beautiful that when there's inflammation and the nerves start to be impeded, they can't do their job, and they start to experience a lot of that pain. So it starts out as the numbing and then the tingling and then pain, and then all of a sudden you can't feel anything. When that happens, it doesn't necessarily mean the nerves have died. Sometimes that does happen, but what really is happening so much of the time is the brain is shutting off the nerve reflexes. So you can't feel it, right? That's the numbing. The body's really protecting you. When I've worked with people with neuropathy, I had a man that came in, he was 70 years old. He'd had neuropathy from above the knee down for 10 years. He was a motorcycle rider. He loved to work out in his shop on his vehicles. And he and his wife danced a lot. And when he started getting this non-diabetic neuropathy, all of that stopped. So for 10 years, he was not functioning well. And when he came in to get on the PEMF device I had at the time, I wished I would have had a P90 plus at the time, but I used what I had. And within that first session, he could start feeling something in his foot. And I asked him, well, what is it? What are you feeling? And he said, I don't know, because I haven't felt anything for 10 years. What he felt the next morning in the shower was he felt the water on his feet. So this is after 10 years of having complete neuropathy, like he couldn't feel anything from his knees down. So that told me that the brain had just shut off the pain because it had gotten too intense. The inflammation was so great and the pain was so great that it just shut off that. And then the pain did come back. And I told him, I said, well, that tissue has been in a damaged state for so long that that tissue isn't ready to be pain-free yet. So I want you to think about that also when you're working with people, that there are some places in the body that aren't ready to be pain-free yet because there's still the congestive, the lifestyle that led to that. Maybe they haven't completely changed that. Maybe they're bringing in a lot of toxins into their system, or they're around mold a lot, or they're just in a toxic environment all the time that keeps them in that really anxious state. Some people aren't ready to, some people and their bodies aren't ready to be pain-free yet. So we have to work through that. So that was the pain issue. I wanted to go here. Accelerates the PEMF also accelerates the healing process of bones and tissue. I also saw that with my mom who fell and broke her wrist in pickleball. This was fun. She went to the doctor and they said, you're probably going to have surgery, but let's wait a week, put your arm in a sling, don't move it, and come back and we'll reassess in a week whether or not you need to have surgery. So she started using the PEMF devices and she did some red light therapy too. And she went back the next week and they took x-rays again. And the doctor came in and said, um, I'm a little confused. And she said, I bet you are. And he said, I don't think you broke your wrist. I think you just have a lot of arthritis. So I told her, I said, did the doctor say anything about arthritis prior to or in the previous x-rays? And she said, no, he didn't. And I said, yeah, your body was laying lots of bone down. So it was healing. And so that's one of the big things that PEMF can do. Um, Different than magnets. Magnets are a static, unchanging magnetic field. So when you think about the refrigerator magnet, although I use those in my clinic a lot for just minor things, but magnets are static. PEMF is pulsating, alternating current that creates electrical charge in the tissue. So that's what PEMF does. Terahertz. Let's talk about the beauty of terahertz. So terahertz is a vibratory wave. It's it's smaller than hertz and it's smaller than gigahertz. It's sort of just a kind of comparatively sort of like a ripple. But what it does is it increases cellular voltage. Um, and here it says terahertz resonates with the natural human frequencies of the body. It is known for its deep penetrating ability, improving blood circulation. So here we are again talking about blood circulation and promoting increased cellular voltage. So when we first started using the P90 Plus, my husband has some fibromyalgia type patterns in his body where he'll have trigger point pain here and there. And his first session on the P90 Plus, he was starting to feel little zingers in those points. And I was kind of shocked because I'm like, okay, well, I know that it's going to go through the system, but you have your feet on the plates, but you're feeling things in your wrist and in your neck and in your shoulders. And that's when I started really kind of recognizing that this device also helps change the energy pathways of the body. It starts opening those energy pathways up. It's addressing or it's helping the nervous system be more efficient and more effective. And I think that was really eye-opening for me when that was our first session for him, was seeing how it was affecting him in all those different areas. I didn't expect that. So terahertz is sort of like the icing on the cake. Get blood flow to the cell knows what to do. But guess what? If you can increase the cellular voltage, it's going to ask for more blood. So there's this beautiful spiral thing that's happening, is that get blood to the cell starts activating differently, and it starts the voltage is raised, and then it starts wanting more blood. It's sort of like, bring it on, bring me the oxygen, bring me the micronutrients, allow me to get rid of waste. It's this beautiful synergy that happens in the body that I don't think we've really had. We've had all of these amazing, great devices. This one, the OlyLife has done more in a very short period of time than I've seen all my other devices do over, like I said, with my shoulder, it was 5 weeks. Well, probably if I would have had the P90 Plus and been doing the Revitalox massager and doing that, it probably would have been sessions, like days, opposed to weeks. So that's what got me so intrigued about these two, the combination of these two. And the energy pathways of the body. Some people call them meridians, but really it's just the energetic pathways that connect everything, that connect our tissues and our organs and our glands and make them function. If you go to an acupuncturist, guess what they're doing? They're activating and trying to get the energy pathways in your body to be more open and allow the energy and the voltage, the normal electricity that's in our body to flow more smoothly, more evenly, so that we have a more settled nature. We're not in crisis mode, and yet all the organs are getting exactly the amount of vitality that they need to do their job better. I thought this was really interesting. I just pulled this up and to put this on this slide, but research conducted by Joey P. Jones, PhD, utilizing fMRI, which is an MRI that records the metabolic activity. Utilizing that MRI imaging has shown that when energy points or pathways in the body are stimulated, neural circuits in the brain are activated almost immediately, far faster than what neural conduction can explain. So our our medical world is starting to get it. We're a little slow here in the United States, but we're trying. Other countries, they already know this. They already have this. Doctors are already prescribing this type of thing. And we're not quite there yet here in the United States, but tests like this and studies like this are becoming more and more. And I think doctors are becoming more aware. Okay, I think that's this wasn't my last slide. I wanted to talk a little bit about the eyes because the capillaries in the eyes are the smallest capillaries in the body. So when we think about eye health, now we're talking about like the galaxy, right? The Galaxy G1 for the eyes. The reason we have eye issues, unless there's been some type of trauma or emotional blockage or something, which happens a lot, but the reason we have eye issues is those capillaries are the smallest in the body. So go back to that slide where that one capillary, there was no perfusion. It was barely maybe one red blood cell at a time was making it through, one platelet at a time, and very slow. If that's the average person, think about how our eyes are really, really struggling to function because they're just not getting the nutrition they need. So all eyesight issues, unless there's trauma, starts with not enough blood and not enough micronutrients to the tissue so that the eyes can, they demand so much ATP to do what they're doing. So more blood flow, right? More blood flow, more cellular voltage is just going to increase and help the eyes. This is still too big. The eyeball is about it's about an inch across. So when you take this all blown up and you can see just the itty bitty, and this doesn't even capture all of them, but then reduce it down to the size of your eye and think about how you need to have better blood flow. And then when we look at it, the smallest vessel, anywhere from 3 to 4 is the smallest micrometers. The comparison is about 10 capillaries of that size would fit across the thickness of a single human hair. So just take out one of this gal's eyelashes. I think it's a gal. It might be a guy. Sometimes they have long eyelashes. But think about just taking one of these hairs, and usually eyelashes are a little bit more coarse than your human hair. But think about taking one of these little itty bitty capillaries and putting 10 of them across there, lining them up, right? That these vessels are so tiny, but they are the ones, that's where we exchange our oxygen and our nutrients, and that's where waste occurs. So it's imperative, moving into the toxicity we have in this world, it is imperative that we get better blood flow to all tissues in the body and that we start figuring out how to bring in nutrition that will then just create more restoration. The blood cells are so narrow, we saw in that one slide that sometimes only one blood cell can pass through at a time. And I think that was it on this slide. And that might be the end of what I had. That was the end of what I had. So let me take you off share. Off share. Okay. Well, that was a half an hour of information, but we can talk about more. So
Maria, I was wondering, can you share with everyone some of the experiences that you're noticing with your clients as they're using the device?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about my first time. My first session on the OlyLife was non-impressive because I didn't really feel anything. I did feel tingling. I felt warmth. I got up out of the chair, felt really tired. and thought, well, I have 4 more clients today. I hope this doesn't last. And sat down at my desk because I had about a 20-minute break before my next client. And then all of a sudden, I felt my spine. When do you feel your spine? Like, that's not something that I would say even in my head. Oh, I'm feeling my spine. I was literally feeling like the muscles around my spine were relaxing. And it felt like the tail end of when you apply icy hot, just that cooling sensation down my spine. And I just started thinking, wow, Maria, how much stress are you holding in your structure? How much stress are you holding that you can actually feel muscles relaxing in your spine? That was so intriguing to me. That lasted the rest of the day. I slept amazing. So did Stephen. Um, we just got the device for us. He has long haul COVID, and then had a simple lipoma surgery last December, so a year ago. Um, and I believe that going under general for that kind of blew up some autoimmune disorders, that type of thing for him. And he's not really been the same energy wise since then. So when Sherry, my upline, told me about this and that she had experienced long haul, then I was just desperate to get it for Stephen because I just needed him to feel better. He was sleeping for days at a time. So kind of like an Epstein Barr type thing. That's what his blood work was sort of looking like. And so we got him on it. It was just for us. We weren't going to really share it. And then we started taking it to the office because we wouldn't have time in the morning. So we would take it to the office so that we could get our sessions in at the office. And then we started putting people on it. And then I got even more excited because I think we've only had one person that didn't feel anything, and he was expecting his tinnitus to go away on the first session, and he's never come back. And I thought, well, but what we have experienced is this. First off, people will get on it, and even if they were like me and they didn't feel a whole lot, they'll call me back a couple of days later and they don't even remember the name of the machine. They don't remember that it's OlyLife. They'll just say, can I get on that machine again? Because I think it really helped me. They don't even know how it helped them. It just, maybe they slept better, but it just helped them. Um, put my massage therapist on it that works in our building. And she's been in several car accidents and has had neck injury and jaw injuries. She got on the Oly Plus or the P90 Plus, couldn't get above a 1. Her ankles got really warm really quick. And when she got done, well, in the middle of that session, she said, I can feel my jaw. And I said, does it hurt? Because we don't want to ever have discomfort. And she said, no, it's just reminding me that it's there. And then when she got off the machine, her eyes started just watering profusely. And I handed her a tissue. And she said, I promise I'm not crying. And she said, but do you think that I have some emotion that I still have to release? And I was like, yeah. And that's happened to me several times, that people get off and their eyes will be really watery. And then just release from toxicity. Um, Blood sugar. I had a gentleman come in and he did 1 session, went home, took his blood sugar, and it was 20 points lower. I've seen blood pressure lower. Mine did even. Pre-Oli, it was like 130s to 185, somewhere in there. And now it's like 119. I think yesterday morning it was 119 over 77. So consistently lower. My blood sugar, I have dawn phenomenon, which is where your blood sugar is higher in the morning. It's starting to more normalize. Weight, oh my gosh, I was amazed that my appetite was so less. So why would that be? Well, let's go back to blood flow and let's look at all of those microvessels that are in the capillaries that are in the gut. If we can get better blood flow to the gut, guess what the gut's doing? The gut's absorbing better nutrition, absorbing it more effectively to be used more efficiently in the body. So therefore, what you're bringing in for food is actually doing something instead of just, going out the other end. It's actually doing something in your body to be more restorative and supplying nutrition, which here in America, our food industry has really damaged a lot of people's, whole gut. And so we're not getting what we need. So that was big for me because I was like, wow, I'm no longer looking for nutrition or looking for food to satisfy something. I was looking for nutrition now to fuel my body. And that was different. So I've been losing weight because of that. Um, let's see, what else? Cheryl, she doesn't mind me telling you this. She had a stroke in, I think it was towards the tail end, mid or tail end of October. And it affected her shoulder and her elbow and her wrist and her hand. And she came in and we did one session on her. She used the revitalized massager on her hand, all over, and her wrist while she was using the P90 Plus. Now, through therapy, she was able to get her shoulder and her arm so she could move, but her fingers would still collapse and her wrist would collapse down in. And she wasn't able to do a lot of grasping or really doing anything with that hand yet until OlyLife. She did one session, did the revitalizing massager on her hand. And after her session, she held her hand up and she said, Maria, she said, I haven't been able to hold my hand out like this long since I had the stroke. And I said, well, let's see how long that lasts. And it was that for a little bit, but then you could kind of see that her fingers were starting to curl back in. And so she said, can I come back tomorrow? And I said, absolutely. So she came back the next day and she sat in the chair and she looked at me. She goes, I have something to tell you. And I said, what's that? And she said, my right hand was able to help me get dressed this morning. That's huge. Just to have one session on the OlyLife, and she got more out of that session than all of the therapy she'd been to so far. She couldn't do this, with her thumb to her pinky or thumb to her fourth finger. She couldn't do that. She didn't have that dexterity. And in one session, she started having that again. And now she's realizing that, she just did a therapy session. And her therapist said, wow, I'm so impressed with how far you've come. And so her right hand now is about half the strength of her left hand in just, probably, I don't know, 4 sessions, 5 sessions. So did she order an OlyLife? Yes, she did. Um, let's see, what else? What other amazing things? I have a gentleman who just had a knee replacement surgery. He was coming to me for some other things, but we had the OlyLife. So I said, you should try this. Let's just try this and see what it does. So he did. And he just used the massager on his knee, even through his jeans. He was just using the massager and doing that. And he came in the next time for the other therapy that we were doing. And he said, I kind of want to do that other machine again. And I said, oh, did you notice something? And he said, well, I went home and I've not had to take any pain medication since that session. And I said, wow, have you been taking it every day? He goes, religiously. He goes, now, granted, I'm still in pain. I know I still need surgery, but I haven't been taking the prescribed medication. Tylenol is cutting it, or Aleve, or whatever he was taking just over the counter was doing its job and keeping him from having to do the medication. So that's huge, going into surgery and not having all of that taxing your liver. And so now he's back, and we did some house calls for him, and he could definitely notice a difference when we came and did the OlyLife for him. So that's been huge. So it's things like that. I mean, I'm a truck driver whose hands, he's doing his oil. I don't know if he drives water truck or whatever, but he's bouncing around in trucks all day, and he's got his, his holding steering wheel, and his hands are just so much in pain. And just doing the massager, he had a trigger finger that was like this. And after the first session, it was straight, and he could make a full fist, a tight fist. I could go on and on. Those are the things that we're starting to see. It's sort of like the PEMF and the terahertz combined just creates this beautiful synergy in the body that just works.
Amazing. And then Maria, I think this will be good if you can kind of share your experience with people are always asking like what number should they be at? And so I think it'd be great if you can share with everyone.
So one of the devices that I have uses microcurrent, and microcurrent feels similar to TENS units. And I'm sure many of you know what a TENS unit is. it stimulates the muscles to kind of contract. It gets blood flow there and it initiates healing. But current, when we're talking about current in the body and microcurrent, we don't want to feel it. It's best if we don't feel it because our body doesn't like to be electrocuted. Our body doesn't like electricity. It just doesn't. It revolts from it. So what we want to do is we want to, when we're facilitating this for ourselves or other people, we want to be absolutely 100% comfortable. We don't want to be in pain. We don't want to be, if our legs start to get kind of antsy, we need to go down or get off. You don't have to do a 20-minute session. If somebody's really sensitive, you can do 5 minutes. I mean, we saw in the blood flow, remember the blood flow video is 3 minutes in and 6 minutes in, how amazing PEMF is. You don't have to do a 20-minute session. So you can do something really, really just low key, but we don't want to feel, we're going to feel some warmth because it's blood flow, right? We're going to feel warmth, but we don't really want to feel anything more than that. And allow that voltage to kind of come through the body sort of unannounced and kind of stealth, because if our body feels pain, guess what it does? Boom, it rejects it. It just throws up the blocks and says, nope, I'm going to do this. And then we start getting that antsy feeling and our whole organism starts to be in a place of crisis again. We don't want that, especially when somebody is coming to us because they're hurting already. We don't want to do that. So what I would like you to think about is start with one, go up every couple of minutes, just monitor the heat in your ankles, how you're feeling, right? And then bump it up if you need to, right? Or if you feel like you can. And then the minute you just feel like this is a good sweet spot, just stop there because we don't need to be at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We don't need to be there, especially early on. And I don't know that we need to be there ever to get amazing results and amazing effects.
It's midnight in East Coast time, and I know it's 9:30 for Pacific Standard Time. So we're gonna stop the call here because I don't want to keep Maria too late. But yes, we heard your guys' request, and as long as Maria's okay with it, we would love to have her come back at least once a month to do more training. And of course, we're gonna continue to integrate more people, so that people like Maria and many more. I know there's people in Maria's team as well that all have the ability to share with you guys how powerful PEMF, and of course PEMF with OlyLife's device. So we're excited to have her. And guys, if you can, just drop a thank you in the comment section for Maria for her time. She
Very
spent an
sweet. Thank you.
hour and a half this evening. Thank you so much, Maria. We appreciate your time. And guys, thank you so
Yeah.
much. We appreciate everyone being on the call this evening. I hope you guys all have a wonderful evening. We'll talk
Thanks.
soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.